always good to start with a little bit of a dance. You know.
Move around.
Yeah, just loosen up.
Fair.
You know, that's what they say. I mean, it's the kind of a store where you think like, oh, I should be dancing in this store. Look at all these things. So cool. We're here with Christine of Convenience Cycle, and today we're going to talk about preparing for winter.
Yeah, biking in the winter, in the weather and whatever.
Yeah, and I have to preface this that we are not fancy people. So we're not going to tell you, hey, buy all these like really expensive things, right? We're just for the regular person that has a regular amount of money.
Yeah.
And maybe even less.
Nice middling solutions in here of all sorts. You want to make sure that whatever bike you're going to be biking on has decent brakes. Not all bike brakes will work in rain and snow. Particularly even just, you know, your basic rim brakes. If you have steel wheels and steel rims, when they are wet, they get really slick and you don't have very good brakes. That's kind of the big one, is either some kind of hub brake, like a disc or a drum or a roller brake or a coaster brake, or having aluminum rims for rim brakes so that you actually get a good braking surface and you actually have decent brakes. So basically having a pedal that your foot's not sliding off of all the time, so that if it's wet, you're not gonna just keep sliding your foot off your pedals and crashing. Personal recommendation is I like the kind of ones that have like a little micro grip on there. And I like them because they work the same in the summer and the winter. It doesn't matter if you're wearing hiking boots or sandals or snow boots, they work the same. The other thing that's kind of nice is fenders, because that'll keep stuff from flying off of your wheels and off the tires onto you and getting you all dirty and muddy. They make them out of metal, they make them out of different kinds of plastics. I really like the plastic ones better. They can bend without breaking, whereas metal, when it bends, tends to crack. People always kind of go on about like having like good tires and stuff, and honestly, I used to commute in Chicago on a road bike in the winter with just the same tires I'd ride all summer, and it was fine. I usually would get new tires in the winter because then they would be not old and worn. But you don't really need anything special, although you can get fancy and get like studded tires and all sorts of crazy grippy things. But, you know, good, well-maintained tires are kind of a must. You want to make sure that you've got a way to carry whatever it is you want. Easiest thing that most people have is put it in a backpack, and if it's raining and you don't have one of those fancy backpacks that keeps everything dry, you can always stick things in Ziploc bags or a trash bag inside of there. My back does not like having a lot of weight on it, whether I'm biking or not. So I like using a rear rack and then having like a bag or a bin that goes on it.
So where did you get yours?
I got one of mine from Bikes for Humanity's piles of donated stuff. It's like one of those little open top grocery panniers. And I actually just cover it with a backpack rain cover that I found on the side of the road. I discovered that that was really useful and kept it. You want to get your bike tuned up, whether that be like actually like tuned up in a shop or just like gone through and make sure everything's in really good working order. At least once a year to every 6 months, depending on how much you ride. It just sort of depends on the person. Some people are harder on their stuff than others. Some people don't really break things as much. It's always kind of surprising to see like what, you know, how some people are a little bit tougher on their things.
Like me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Heavy user. Yes.
Biggest thing you can do for your bike is to give it a good clean. Reason I brought this one out and stuck this one in the stand is it's kind of a great example. You can see how grimy it's gotten, and this hasn't really been out that frequently in the rain yet. So they get pretty dirty, and you know, some of it is like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter if you've got like, you know, some mud on your frame. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But what tends to happen is if you go through and you wipe your bike off like once a week or every other week, you're gonna find that you'll end up noticing when things are breaking.
Well, that bike looks clean to me. I mean, you want me to bring my bike and see?
Well, maybe we should get you to wipe yours off.
With all the leaves and everything.
Break a few less things. So the biggest one that I tell people is going through and wiping off your braking surface on your rim. So cleaning off your rims and then your brake pads in here. You can totally use usually rubbing alcohol, or this is simple green that's diluted out already, or a little bit of soapy water. But even just a dry rag, as you can kind of see, it does get a lot of that off. And then you want to do the same thing, kind of wipe off your chain. This is a bit that's going to differ depending on where you are in the country. So here we don't have a lot of road salt, we don't have the ocean, so we don't really want to oil stuff and leave a lot of oil on the surface of parts. It doesn't really do any good. All it does is stick all this grime to it. So usually if you oil your chain here, you want to make sure that you oil your chain and then you wipe off all the extra oil so that it doesn't stick all of that dirt to your bike and wear it all out. Whereas if you live in like the Midwest, where they use tons of road salt, you definitely want there to be oil sitting on the surface of your chain because you don't want that salt to be getting at it. The coast, similarly, you want to make sure that you have things like coated so that you can't get that salt on the stuff as much. The other thing you want to be careful of too is make sure that you keep your tires inflated. What happens here is as it rains, a lot of stuff gets washed out into the road, so people will bike over stuff and get flat tires. And if you don't keep your tires inflated to the range that it says, you're way more likely to get flats. And I do kind of tell people it's usually a better idea to have like a good floor pump in your house to pump your tires up every, week to 2 weeks. Is about how often you need to do that, because like the balloons that you had as a child at birthday parties, rubber is not completely non-porous, so it will lose air over time. And you want to do that really regularly, as opposed to having the usually really expensive little mobile ones like, these little travel pump things. But if you want to pump your tires up regularly with this, you'll be there for a long time. If it's going to be raining out, you want a nice, good waterproof raincoat or something to keep your core dry. I've even seen people do silly things like, put a trash bag over themselves if they forgot their raincoat at home. Like cut a little hole for your head and your arms.
It works.
It works. Just you want to make sure you keep your core nice and dry. And then you want to layer. So, I've got a nice little tech thin woolly thing, and then I've got a nice cheap Goodwill sweater. Sweaters.
I have some.
Nice wool sweaters tend to be pretty solid for cheap, affordable, and warm. Although they do tend to be a little bit bulkier if you're going to take it off and stuff it in your bag or something like that, than your thin tech thing. But they're also a little bit cheaper. I tend to like not paying a lot for clothes because I work in a bike shop, so invariably I get things covered in bits and caught on stuff and get holes in them, and I don't really like spending a lot of money on clothes. That's kind of a good one. The other bit that's kind of important is making sure that your hands and your feet stay as warm and dry as you need. Some people don't like having waterproof gloves because they find they're too warm and you get all sweaty inside there and it's not very comfortable. So some people just like a nice warm wool glove that'll breathe a little more. Other people really want a good waterproof glove. I like waterproof gloves because my hands are always cold, so I don't really have a problem with my hands getting too sweaty. I have a problem with my hands getting too cold. And same thing with socks. You can get your normal wool socks. Find those anywhere. You can get, they make waterproof socks, like Showers Pass makes all sorts of neat ones. They're local here. And you can, I usually just do wool socks and a nice waterproof pair of shoes so that the splashing up from the road doesn't get my feet wet. And I usually carry a spare pair of socks because, if you splash some water into your shoe and your foot gets all wet, it's nice to have, something dry to put on. What I have in my emergency kit is a spare tube, whatever size your bike is, a patch kit. I also include a little tire boot, set of tire levers so you can fix your flat, some duct tape for all various odd things that duct tape's good for. Usually I'll also include a Presta to Schrader adapter, so this way you can use like gas station pumps on Presta valves. A multi-tool, so this usually I want to make sure has a bunch of sizes of Allen wrenches so that I can get different things apart or adjusted. And then it also has a flathead and a Phillips head screwdriver. Zip ties, an adjustable wrench. This goes up to the size for axle nuts, so I can get off wheels that have a bolt-on axle. I also carry around pretty much everywhere these days a battery pack so that I can charge my lights or my phone or whatever I need. Sometimes I'll remember to throw in a set of gloves so that if you're fixing flats in the winter and it's really dirty, your hands stay clean. And then I just put it all in a little bag so that I can find it in my stuff. If you're really just having a bad day and you just don't want to do it and you're your foot hurts or your whatever happens, or you've got a flat tire and it's cold and it's wet and you don't want to fix it, is a good way that you're going to get home or to the bike shop or to wherever you need to go. So bus pass, some phone numbers, whatever you is, and kind of figure out your
friends. You need friends to help you, and maybe having like a bike town membership, or
that's not a bad idea.
scooters.
Yeah. Different things, especially if you can like lock your bike up inside at work. I tend to recommend people not lock your bike outside at night, but other than that, pretty much anything's a possibility. Everybody's different, and what works for you is different. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. This is very useful information, and I hope it will benefit a lot of people.